Sunsets and sunrise, golden hour. Always nice in this place. Hello everyone, and welcome back once again to Minecraft. Creepy, comfy, creative world. And once more, sorry it's been so long. It's kind of always been the nature of this series to be a bit occasional, and I've gone back and forth on how I'm going to do it. But whatever, let's just jump right in and start building and start taking suggestions. And to start with, I believe we are missing a building over here in Possum Springs. Just in time to see the streetlights turn out. Oh, look at that, there's a glow squid all the way down there in the deep. We are going to have to do something with this at some point. Actually, a big pit just behind Possum Springs is definitely a huge part of it, isn't it? But no, we've already got the mine for that. Maybe we'll do that in this episode. There's a lot of things I want to build. I think we've been doing like these big projects that are really time-consuming all this time. Let's do some things that we can, I guess, bang out really quickly and flesh out the world. That'll be the objective for this one. Up until now, I've always kind of matched buildings to what was going up across the street. But here, I'm making this a little bit wider just to give myself room for what I want to go up top. Because this is something I couldn't let the street go without building. I'm already liking the way this is coming from the carve-outs for the windows. Yeah, that's going to be a real nice interior there. This whole top thing is going to be one floor. I think I mentioned it last time, but as it turns out, the Night in the Woods soundtrack makes for some very good building music. I don't know. It puts you in the proper mood for creating something from that world, which I suppose only makes sense. Wow! I forgot you were in the game. It's been a couple of weeks and I forgot about you. That's probably the best use case for from the fog mod, isn't it? Never really needed this before so far, but Potion of Night Vision can help with building indoors, I suppose. Let's have a couple of balconies off to the side, partly because they look kind of cool, and partly because they actually sort of help with what I'm trying to do. Gotta have some sort of side entrance, right? And it's pretty fitting that you can't hear it, but the music I'm listening to right now is starting to get a little bit more dangerous. With this night vision, I hadn't even realized night had fallen. Maybe I should use this for building more often. It's not nearly as atmospheric, I suppose. But anyway, this was a place that was once quite opulent, so we're gonna make sure that that's the case here as well. If I really wanted to do this, hang on, if we go yoop, and yoop, and yoop, you absolutely can have a 3-door door system. So let's have that, why don't we? It looks a little weird, probably can't stop it from doubling up, but that's okay. There's our ticket booths, and there's our entrances to our ticket booths. And we just gotta figure out what we're doing with the rest of all this. Of course, we're going to need to make sure that all of this is nicely enclosed and safe. Even this is something that so often gets skipped out on in Minecraft, and it adds so much. As for along the walls, that doesn't matter because we're going to put some of this stuff. There we go. So I was thinking that this could be a sort of patron's waiting area. You know, the kind of place where people can just kind of sit around and maybe order some drinks while waiting for a show. Every nice place I've been has had something like this. There we go, and there we go. Although, remember, this place is left abandoned, so it's pretty likely that there'll be not much here in the way of actual light. And yeah, I guess in this upper floor theater, we can just imagine that these seats are all one row. Like, they're not actually movable, and therefore this is much more safe than it at first appears. Wow, real nice view from this balcony, huh? Okay, so now we've got all that done, and this is looking perfect. The way we get in here might depend partly on how we build the next building next door, but yeah, this is the building where the lone musician plays, which we can only access in the late game, the one that ends up abandoned and filled with pigeons. And I suppose in a way it's still serving its purpose. It is kind of cool seeing the city at night with night vision potions on. I mean, it's like full bright nighttime. We can get a more clear view of what it's supposed to look like, but yeah, the denseness of the atmosphere is also part of it. Oh wow, it has been a long time since I worked on this street, and it may be a little longer. I sort of like the idea of leaving this as a brick back wall. It just seems sort of fitting. And we can have all the rows of seating right here. I think all this is going quite well. The night vision potion was super useful, but I don't think there's anything that can quite capture the atmosphere as we're building, like a lantern. So we'll stay with the classics. I do need to work on this a little bit more, make sure that everything looks good from the outside as well as the inside. But I think this is ready to become what it is. You know, we could even actually... I think it would be a good idea to make this a brick back wall as well. I mean, being a backstage, presumably at one time there would have been a curtain in front of all this, right? So, 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now we're going to want to absolutely fill this place with all kinds of dust and cobwebs. Put it all up in the rusting, rotting rafters. By the way, rust, in this case simulated in all cases by waxed copper, so that it'll never age and just turn blue and not look like rust at all. And now that this place is sufficiently cobwebbed up, let's give it its normal inhabitants. Now, I couldn't find anything resembling pigeons in the spawn eggs, so parrots are close enough, right? Now we're gonna need about 500 of these. And let's put some more. I have no idea if these are going to despawn or not. Whatever, we can always put more. And hey, they'll make a song, right? Something that can be heard all up and down the streets. I'm a genuine menace to society. Alright, we gotta poke some holes. I'm not really too concerned with poking holes in the side of this, and in fact, the balconies give me an excuse not to build this next one too high. I just had a potential idea. Yeah, what if we put you... I mean, I guess it works, but the slabs make this a bit annoying. Alright, you know what? There's an acceptable level of jank to that. I sorta like it. We don't need you right there. Okay, so we can block these areas off. I don't want villagers running off. I was thinking, how about for in here, we have something of a more sunken level that's still made of a similar kind of brick. But again, just something to give the building a little bit of texture. I'm thinking that this is probably also going to be apartments simply because I want there to be more of a focus on housing. I want to get more villagers in here, and speaking of villagers, I've got an idea for when this is done. Now, I was originally basing this off the sort of bluish hue of Greg and Angus's apartment, but now I'm thinking if we want to go for a shared look, sort of like what we have with the coffee shop in the other one, maybe we could do something like this. And basically this is just going to be a little laundromat that is for the apartment, but is also public facing. Would you ever see that in life? Probably not. But it's just nice. Yeah, I have no idea what to use for this stuff, so here you go. Here's your washers and your dryers. Have fun with this. This is about all you're gonna get. And let's figure out how we're gonna get this staircase going. Whoa! Huh? A traitor spawned on the roof. That's hilarious. I don't know if I've ever had that happen before. Maybe came to listen to the parrots sing. So I'm listening to Spotify again. I'm getting an ad for Popeyes, and now I really want Popeyes. But it's late. Things I suffer through in this world. By the way, advertisers whose information about my desires I relay to the audience, I hope you're taking notice. I hope you're taking sponsorship levels of notice. People have asked, like, what would it take for you to do, like, a sponsorship or whatever? I have received, like, some offers before and plenty of attempts at fraud. I would do a paid sponsorship if it's something that I already use, or at least would use. So basically, if Popeyes wanted to sponsor me, I'd probably do that.
Huh?
Oh, hey, I finally built you a staircase you can climb down. Alright, well, if you want to live up here in the penthouse, that's fine with me. That was a really funny echo that punctuated the end of the song I was listening to. That was beautiful. Wow, you made your way all the way down here. That's crazy. Well, good stuff. Residents of this apartment will probably need somebody to buy from, because the only grocery store in town is the Snack Falcon. And you can't survive off of snacks. Not that I would know. That's looking good for an exterior, and I think that the Possum Springs street is structure complete. Still details to be put in, still stuff to put inside, but it is actually ready to be here. Okay, so how does this look from elsewhere? First of all, that is a beautiful road over to Founders Street. We're starting to look like an actual town now. I'm not going to keep it to one strip here. If we expand this, it's going to be out into the surrounding hills because we really limited ourselves this way. Ooh. And it looks like some of the parrots have started to spread around. They're trying to rescue a buried cow. Okay, I've made it so that it is possible for you to get out, cow. So anything after this point is entirely your own laziness. Rest of the place is pretty much done, and I'd say this is all coming out pretty nicely. It's not exactly a one-to-one recreation, but we can do certain things nicely. For example, come on. Come on. Bunk bed. Why not? And if we take wood slabs, we can even complete it by going like that. What am I thinking? That's way too cramped. There we go. That's much better. Actually, what am I thinking even more? Gonna have to have some way to get up there, right? Let's make sure you've got that. There we go. Plenty of space. We are simsing it up these days. As always, plenty of room for more detail, plenty of room for stuff, but in the meantime, I don't think it really matters much. This block is complete, and I'm not going to bother to count up all the beds. We're just going to release some villagers and kind of let them run amok. After all, this place needs a lot more people. We've got more people dead than alive. There's a small one already! Is there just a chance of getting one when you drop a spawn egg? Oh, who cares? The townspeople run free! Also, some parrots. How did they get out, man? Oh, but wait, there was... I'm gonna have to climb all the way back through here. There was another thing I did. They're using the rooms. That's good. Wait, I just had the best idea. What if their bunk bed ladder didn't stop there? Straight up into the attic. And it is from the attic that one can come out onto this little maintenance access area, right? Let's just put this here and this here. And now, if you angle it right, it's possible to jump to the balcony and parkour into here. Oh, I love this so much. A few of them are getting caught by spiders, but that's okay. Look, I'm not responsible for them once they're released from the eggs. Now I'm starting to think, though, maybe it would be a good idea to say that maybe the lower floors are still in use? Like, look, maybe there's just not as much of an audience anymore for live theater, and so the upper floor has been retired. I would like to have it so that there are some lights coming from this building so that this whole section of the street isn't totally dark. Of course, down here, we don't need to worry about that because we've got the lamps. There we go. Social butterflies, all of us. Crossing the bridge, we can see what's over there, although there are no lights from it. So, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll want to change that, and also maybe we'll want to give that roof a little bit more of a profile. The one on the left, I mean. But you know what? At this point, like, I've been doing, like, busy, heavy lifting building for so long. What if we start working on some of your suggestions, some things that can very easily be implemented? And I can't think of a better way to do that than to take a hilarious suggestion that you guys had before and build those villagers, those lovebirds, a little cozy space in the side of the mountain. Hey. You're supposed to be in here, aren't you? Technically, I suppose you probably came from Possum Springs. You guys are really wandering around. You know what? That's okay, actually. Let's go ahead and put something like this here. And some sofas around here. We're going to make sure that this is the comfiest spot imaginable. Vent the air double bed. That'll go right there. There. And you. And you. And you. And you. There we are. Alright, now they're in here. It's totally the same ones. I can 100% verify that. Totally. And nobody look into it too much. Whatever, canonically, these are the same two that were found hiding in the rock face, and they seem perfectly content to stay right here. And why wouldn't they? This place is awesome. And just in case they want to, because this could start to be something of a lonely life, I would imagine. There we go. Now, if they really feel like it, there is a safe path to and from. Because even though they may love each other, I get the impression that it might be somewhat excruciating having to be only in each other's company all the time. There we go. And the council of villagers can come visit whenever they feel like. Just contemplating getting away from it all. Unfortunately for the piggies on this hill, this is kind of obstructing some of what I want to do right now, so what we're going to do is tunnel straight through it, and we're just going to build one of these here. Oh, you are not in the right spot for this, buddy. None of you are. Well, I guess we know what the outcome of that was. One of Possum Springs' key features was its water tower, was it not? So, let's begin our construction. We're just gonna have to figure out how to build it, like what material. It's funny how the factory blocks were the first mod I installed, and they're one of the last to be getting any use. There we go, there's our base. I'm just building this to be something that you can view from elsewhere and have it look cool. It's the whole point, because otherwise it's just sitting in the woods, and yep. I mean, the thing about a water tower, I feel, is that it has to have a presence, but not one that you really notice unless you're specifically looking at it. Alright, let's just place you along the edge. You don't really quite fit in with the rusty look, but that's alright. Just gotta make sure you're safe when you're climbing up here on this tetanus-infested death trap. And of course we have to have the pipe work running downward. Actually, upon completing it, I kind of feel like it doesn't have nearly enough presence, so though it may be illogical, this thing is gonna radiate outward. There we go, that'll cap it off. And let's see how that looks on the horizon. I think that looks really cool. Thank you, Sunset, for helping prove the concept. There we go. It almost looks like an alien tripod from Ice Cube's War of the Worlds. See, look, a structure like that, you don't have to call any attention to it whatsoever. It just looms there, towering over everything else, always present, and visible from just so many places on the map. Look, anytime we're walking here, it's just barely poking out over the rooftops. Probably can't see it from this neighborhood here, where the parrots have apparently migrated. Somebody's admiring the view. Look, we've even got an iron golem! I didn't make that! This place is really coming alive in this episode. And of course, it'll be there in the parallax whenever you're walking past these buildings. Wow, we really have turned to 2D space 3D, or maybe this 3D space feels oddly 2D. All I know is the villagers have gone back to their horrible habits of leaving doors open everywhere they go. Are you guys sleeping in there? You better be. Oh, you're just making a late night snack. Look at you actually standing at the sink. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Boo! Thank you, Rain, for helping my point. You know, it's funny, I was listening to the Night in the Woods soundtrack while building all of this, but just now Spotify switched over to the Cry of Fear soundtrack, and immediately these streets just look very, very different to me. Feel different, too. Power music, huh? But anyway, I think we're about ready to be moving on from this now. Sort of. I still have one more Night in the Woods related thing I want to work on. And that'll be over here. God, this is... Wait, let's get a boat. This has potential to be really spooky. Because it's night, it's raining. Let's make that lantern-lit journey over to the sawmill. Or mine, or whatever it is. One of you said that it's actually a logging mine, and I think that sounds about right. You know what? Here, let's park underneath the bridge for safekeeping. Oh, this is exactly as creepy, so eerie and isolated as I had hoped. Alright. You know what? I want to get to the mine, because this is the kind of thing that if I don't do it now is just gonna sit forever. Where's that other door? Here we are. We need to start cleaving out some tunnels. Let's make this actually feel industrial and not just like a Minecraft mine. Oh, look at that. We can use stairs and slabs to make these supports look properly thin. Neat, neat, neat. This was never going to be as deep as it goes. No, this thing's got to go much, much deeper. We haven't really done much that's that deep, except for maybe the oldest view room, which I always forget is here because it was one of the first projects on the map. There and there, and now the question is how are we getting down here? And I think the answer is probably a hatch right here, and then we'll have, okay, no, here's how we're gonna do it. Have a ladder here, and a bunch of crates stacked up inside. That way we can have... Yep, come on. Yep, will this work? Will this work? It's such a tight fit. Alright, look, so now we've got this trapdoor here. That gives enough room to jump up through here and up through the service hatch. And now we'll just have the ladder running here, And you can just imagine that the elevator slides along it. Sometimes I may actually just let the soundtrack that I'm hearing play, so that you can understand where I'm at. There we go. We've got perfect ambiance for this place, because this is where some of the town's darker secrets are gonna lie. I'm actually really hoping we find a cave system, because that'll save me a lot of trouble. Oh my god! Oh! Hey! Oh wow, you're sticking around a while, huh? There you go. I always forget about you. It's always when I start a new session that you go away for a long, long time, and then come back all at once. Okay. Okay, I think this is the perfect place. It is going to require explosives. It's always weird. This may be an old mine in universe, but it's a very new one that I'm gonna have to make for this to work. Okay, so what we're gonna need for this room right here is a couple of items from our recipe list. First of all, TNT, and then a lever. These are all the things you need for a good time. Now we build a nice little pit, deep and wide. Oh wow, there's a whole... I had forgotten the game had gotten so much deeper. Well, anyway, we're gonna fill this with TNT. Absolutely chock full of TNT. In fact, that may even be too much TNT for what I'm going for. We may actually have to fill in the sides of this a little bit to make it smaller than what it is. Anyways. And now we've made that hole. Hearing this soundtrack applied to this aspect of the Night in the Woods game is absolutely horrifying, even more than it already was. It's actually not proving nearly as difficult as I initially believed it might, because all I really care about doing right now is sealing it off so that you can't see any cave light. So, yeah, we're gonna have to get rid of all this glow lichen. And other than that, it's just about preventing any bleed through from the lava caves. And there we are. You go down deep enough in the mines, you'll eventually come to what is near a bottomless pit. Very near. And of course a gap to speak across from, with no idea how anybody on the other side may have gotten there. Ooh, wait, I have another idea. I definitely have another idea. This right here needs to end in just a big old chamber. So here's how we make a big old chamber. Yep. And that's how you do that. This whole area is going to have to be filled with waist-high water. At least as low as water can be in this game, which is exactly waist-high. And now we gotta start thinking about what goes upward. There we go. Daylight. And now we have our little well in the woods just off to the side of the mine, if you care to look for it. And at some point I'll probably go ahead and install a climbable ropes mod. I've had a look and there are some, so that there's actually a way in and out of here, or at least out of here. But yes, so we have the pit to the abyss all the way down in the deeper mines. We have, you know, all this here on the upper levels, and I swear I just saw movement down there. Oh, it's a bat. Okay. I'm startling myself constantly. I've been down here for like 45 minutes just listening to the Cry of Fear soundtrack. What do you want from me? Just look at how good this looks at golden hour. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, there's beauty in decay, there's beauty in rust, and I think that's really starting to show now. Actually, wait. At this point, that means that from the mine, which just kind of sits unassuming over here, you can probably see a lot of Possum Springs, right? Yeah, look at that. I love how it just pokes over the tops of the trees, because everything's been too low for that pretty much up until this episode and the last. But that water tower has become a central feature, which may have served its purpose long ago. Maybe it's still functional, but people just kind of don't really think about it. It blends into the background. And of course, there comes the point in every episode where we start taking care of the patrons. And this one is going to lead us back to the mayor's house, all the way back at 1 Founders Street, the very first structure on the map. I'd forgotten how atmospheric it is walking down the path to the house. And there's a little bit more of a view from here these days, since we were last here. But anyway, this is going to take us, I think, into here. So first we're going to pull up the carpet a little bit, and then open up the floor. Oh, that's right, we built this on top of a lava pool. Also, hey, I just realized this allows us to put carpet on walls. I hadn't realized we could do that, but whatever. Just build ourselves a nice little pit. It definitely wasn't me, so who knows what long ago crime this is in reference to. But it's pretty creepy that I have no idea this is down here, huh? So we're gonna have this title named Trevor the Brever, A Heart of the Sea. And down here we are going to place it in an item frame and just seal that right up. Trevor the Brever's heart's forever under the floorboards. Although it always lets me know that it's there sometimes. Why does everybody gather at this house in particular? I think it's really fun that some of those parrots have made their way all the way from the theater down to here. How's everybody doing? A couple of villagers still in the bed with the kitty? I think those guys are living the life. This is coming alive so much. Like, things are starting to move around between areas. Everywhere we fly, we can see something else in the distance. Actually, it's very much a style decision to unabandon the lower levels of this theater, just because I want there to be some light coming off of this building that's visible from all around. So we are going to, not on this side, but on this side, create a bunch more windows. How you guys holding up? Sort of reminds me of that abandoned power plant I explored on the channel one time, how even in the lower levels you can hear the pigeons in the ceiling, all the way on top. And it's creepy because when they're muffled like that, when they're a floor or two removed from you, it really does sound like speaking a lot of the time. With parrots, it's gotta be even worse, right? Let's grab one of those, put this right here, just to get a little bit more of a glow from these upper floors. Alright, and that is actually much better, especially from a distance. There's the latest grave in the graveyard. I like doing things that are a little bit more natural in amid all like the stone and more ornate things. And I think things like this go well underneath the trees, where the leaves are falling down on them. I'm sorry, but just how perfect looking is that? This thing has managed to occupy a spot where it's just framed up so nicely no matter where you are. I really wasn't sure where to put this next request, and I thought about it a lot, came up with a few good ideas. But ultimately what I decided is that, for lore reasons, it's probably more interesting if we put it right here where we hid the telltale heart, right? I mean, it kind of gives this old estate more of a story. So, right here, we are going to place Puquet's skull, who made a helpful video explaining how to do this. Place you right there on the stand, and then we're going to come outside where this mechanism awaits. So we'll put this back here, go like that. There we go. And now we can just kind of put these things back and put you guys back. And now, hiding right here in the walls is Puquet's skull. And you know what? No one ever needs to know. Look at that. The painting is actually thick enough to cover you, but we can still see your chin poking out from the bottom. You know what? I like that. I like that because it's the kind of detail that could so easily go unnoticed. There's a whole bunch of different ways to hide this too, so maybe we'll play with that over time. All I know is that this whole experience has given me a weird urge to play Kentucky Route Zero. I feel like the theater needs a little bit more of a presence from this direction, more of a distinct skyline. So just putting a nice little hat on top of it should pretty much accomplish that. Could stand to work on the window and light situations from this side, but I think for the most part that's looking pretty good. Especially how from a distance you can see right through that main theater, the auditorium. I'm definitely thinking that somebody nefarious used to live in this very house, and there may even be more bodies yet to be uncovered. This was mainly just to show you guys that I'm alive and still making this, but I want to do at least one big construction project every episode. So I think here would actually be a good spot to fill things out and make a school. Mainly because I don't want to spend a lot of time clearing out and flattening land, and this would be a decent spot to do that. When you build the school, are you? And this Herobrine, I swear, he doesn't appear and disappear, he lingers. Flounder is always watching around here. Well, maybe it's actually with satisfaction. I don't know, maybe you like the fact that this town is getting some new life breathed into it, while simultaneously having life breathed into it for the first time. Again, your presence has sort of been consistent. But I kind of like the idea of the school being right here, because look, then you walk through the woods, it's like you have to go home past the creepy old house. So just as an experience, of course it would really seat itself in the minds of the kids who go here. You guys are just kind of endemic to the region now, huh? Yeah, I think we've cleared out a decent amount. It's just, I always worry so much that we're building too densely, that we're cutting down so many trees, that we're making it, I don't know, less of what it is. But looking around, I actually think it'll be fine, especially if we plant some more before this is over. The critical thing here is figuring out how all this stuff is going to work before the walls go up. And I'm thinking here, first floor, we've got like administration in the center, and then gym, auditorium, classroom, and some bathrooms, offices, other stuff in the middle. And then we'll have a second floor with a lot more classrooms. This was really more a logical way to build the center area, but I can't help but feel like maybe it might have been a little bit inspired by Bully. Stuff like this is a lot of building, but it's the planning that takes absolutely forever. I also went back and forth on a couple of different designs for the exterior. I figured in the case of an old school building like this, and given its proximity to this other stuff, that maybe the redder brick would be better. There we go, school is coming together. It actually works pretty well here, you know? It doesn't really cleave into the landscape as much as I would have expected. It fits in. In fact, it probably adds some much-needed depth to the otherwise two-dimensional Possum Springs. I see you down there. Okay, we're almost done with this thing. I actually sort of like the idea of having one side of this be slightly taller than the other. I don't know why, but it's really appealing to me right now. Okay, the building is structure complete. Now all that's left to do is to detail and light it. And the reason I wanted to have this creepy attic is because it's kind of inspired by the one that was in my 5th grade school. So the way that worked was, well, it was kind of the center of my school's ghost story. I mean, that place was so strange. It was a really old building. It was almost like a haunted castle. There were so many staircases that went up and down, places where there were half floors and places where things met that you wouldn't expect. It was so topsy-turvy. There was no standardization to the construction whatsoever. Hang on, I'm actually gonna unmute the music track because what's playing now is actually kind of appropriate. So one of the oddities of its construction was the stairway to the attic. And it, from the get-go, had this really creepy aura about it. It was smushed right between 2 rooms on the upper floor. And it really didn't look like it belonged there. It looked like somebody had just pulled the walls apart and inserted it there where it wasn't before. It was made of this uncharacteristically dark metal that was so worn, like the paint was flaking off, it looked rusted underneath. And right in front of it was, instead of a regular door, one of those old-timey scissor gates. The whole thing just didn't look like it belonged there in a building that already looked like nothing belonged. And at the top of the stairs, in the dark, because there were no lights in this narrow, deep staircase, was this big metal door with frosted glass as the window pane. And on that pane was a pair of eyes cut out of paper. Now, the reason that was there was because it was pretty much the staff playing along with the school's ghost story. That basically went that the school's first principal, who it was named after, had gone up there and suffocated or had some kind of allergic reaction from the dust and died up there and had kind of been left to rot, and it was quite a while before she was found. Now, as to the veracity of that, I'm going to assume probably not true, but, you know, as a bunch of 5th graders, we definitely believed it. We just kind of accepted that as fact, and it didn't help that the teachers were more than happy to play along. It was so creepy because that stairway was so narrow and dark that you would have to go up to the scissor gate and sort of look up and squint just to be able to see the door up there. And you'd have to squint even longer to see the eyes that were pasted on the glass. I don't know, it was just so creepy, and the best part was, or the worst part depending on who you ask, was this was right next to the science room, I believe, which was almost like college style and other of the building's oddities, where it was like a sloped floor leading up to the back where the storage room was, and at the bottom was the teacher's desk. And anytime we would be lined up waiting to go in there, you know, our line would be extending out past that scissor gate, and so there would be a good few minutes where we would just... You would be one of the unfortunate few students that was in front of the gate, just kind of nervously staring up, counting the seconds until we would get to go in. Alright, these rooms are starting to look complete. I think we're just about done here. Actually, pretty much the only thing that still needs working on is these things in the middle. But overall, I am really happy with how this school has turned out. Look, if we come over here, we've got our gymnasium, which doesn't really have too much to it. And here we've got the auditorium, making newfound use of the wall-on-wall mechanic. And of course, if you come upstairs, we've got some real creepy attic entrances. Once more, it doesn't look like it belongs there. I don't think we can really have anything akin to a scissor gate, but this will do just fine for now. We just gotta think of what to put up here. I'm sure there's plenty we can do with that, but, you know, I've been recording for a long time, and I am starting to get a little bit on the tired side. I also sort of like these interior windows. I realized that there were certain classrooms that weren't gonna have, like, any windows at all, which was awful. So, had to do something about that. And yeah, I'd say this ended up fitting in quite nicely. There we go. I feel like "there we go" is probably about 10% at least of my dialogue in this series. But whatever, when it works, it works. If it does... Hey there, whoa. Ooh. You were on screen for a little bit, and by the time I noticed you, you were gone. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. All these villagers and animals that we're placing down are starting to bring this place to life. And we're starting to see stuff transplant, you know? People are walking around and doing things, and we're seeing stuff out and about more. There's just a lot more moving parts, I feel like, and that's what's gonna make all of this. I'm also probably gonna end up just playing the music that I'm listening to over these things. I have it on a separate track so I can mute or unmute as needed. But Night in the Woods, Cry of Fear, and Silent Hill 2 have definitely been some good companions for all of this, and it's something I'll probably continue to do in the future. Once more, if you're a patron and you want a tribute in the graveyard or elsewhere, the best place to do that is to either ping me in the Discord in the Patrons Lounge, or just DM me directly on Patreon. And if you messaged me before and I didn't get to you in this video, just keep bugging me, keep messaging me, because, you know, I was kind of scattered with this one and I didn't start adding names until late. But all that said, We are developing a bit of a skyline. And if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more creepy and comfy content. If you have any ideas for other videos you think I should do, the best place to suggest that will be at the Discord, which I will link in the description. If you want to try these mods out for yourself, that link will also be in the description. If you want to support me on Patreon, that link will be in the description. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Kinda looks more like a radar than a water tower, doesn't it?